This one came across my radar. Um, this is another John Cordy video. This is another like a soy-faced beardo guy. And yes, I'm using my camera. I know that we're gonna try this. People are saying that I really should have my face on these things, and I really don't think so. But I do understand. So we'll give this a try and see if you guys think this is really unnecessary. I know a lot of people do, and like I say, so a lot of us are in the anti-soy face brigade. If we're gonna get any followers or get anywhere on YouTube, we're trying to do it without the thumbnail with the surprise face and the open mouth and stuff. Anyway, so this is John Cordy, and this is it's called "We've All." Here's the title: "We've all been using guitar plugins wrong. Neural DSP prove it." All right. So first of all, while I understand that there are people who have quad cortexes and like them, and that they're pretty cool for what they do, I really don't like this company at all. So if Neural DSP has to prove something to you, we're already in trouble. But let's take a look about this. I think this is going to be about gain staging. I'm just going to.
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favorite players. 40% off of.
Right, so we're gonna watch a beardo play stuff. See where the video starts.
Actually, general. Okay, if you've ever plugged into a plugin and used your audio interface, you've probably followed the advice of the manufacturers, which in general is something like set these things as high as you can before clipping. And you may have kind of questioned in your mind, is this really kind of accurate stuff? You know, sometimes you might have plugged into a Neural DSP plugin and you thought, like, I thought this was supposed to be clean, or this was edge of breakup. I'm finding this isn't as accurate as I was hoping, or maybe you plugged into Helix Native and it didn't sound anywhere close to how it sounded when you were plugged into your piece of hardware. This video is kind of exploring some.
All right, so I had a bunch of different articles up before called "Where's the Zero? Where is Zero?" And what I mean by that is, you know, in the ancient days in the professional audio world, we had a reference level, like what 0 VU, which was plus 4 dBu, and a certain number of volts and stuff. Fancy, I don't even remember this stuff anymore, but we definitely had a reference level. Nowadays in digital, you might say minus 18 is 0 decibel, is 0 VU, and which was our plus 4. Maybe it's minus 15. Really depends on the company. When it comes to guitar amps, let's say you have a perfect model of a guitar amp out there. Your guitar puts out a certain level. You plug that into the input of the guitar amp, and you get the sound you expect. If you have an exact model of that guitar amp as a plug-in, and you plug your guitar into your audio interface, where is the level for your interface on your gain or whatever that makes that the same as plugging it into an amplifier, in order to figure out where that model is? But in order to know that, I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but in order to know that, you need to know what level that plugin expects. You also need to know how much gain the interface's DI adds or subtracts to your normal guitar level. So it's a moving target. And unless they tell you what values you're supposed to be looking for, you kind of, it's tricky. Now, Revolver had a set, you know, you hit your guitar note, you know, you play some chords or whatever, and it automatically adjusted the gain level. And to me that one always went pretty close. But it is such a moving target because look, let's be honest, not all pickups are as loud as each other. Some pickups have a lot more output than others. So these like blanket statements are kind of crazy. To me, it's nice that you can have more gain than you would have going into a regular guitar amp, or less. Like, let's say you have really hot pickups, plugging into a normal amp, maybe they'll never clean up. But with an interface, you could always turn that down on the way into the plugin. Or you could turn it down before it gets to that plugin using another plugin, like a volume control or something. But let's see what they say here. I hold out little hope for soy-faced beardos, but, whatever.
Some of that. Now, the quick version of this is that there's essentially a baseline level that companies actually make their plugins at, right?
Well, this is from Mirror Profiles. Now, this is one of our friends here. Interesting. If you use a UAD or most Focusrite interface to set your preamp gain to 0 and a plug-in input level at Unity, and you'll have the perfect gain response, the same as plugging your guitar straight into the amp. What do you mean by 0? What do you mean by 0? Like no gain at all, or Unity gain? See, that's the other problem. Is like when people say 0, lots of times 0 means +4, or it means 0 decibels full scale, or it means no gain at all. So what does that mean? On these Scarletts and stuff, I think, let's see, let me get a good look. I have one sitting in a box right here, but I'm too lazy to even lift up the box. Sorry. Let me just get a picture real quick. Let me pull up a picture. Sorry. Give me a second here. Okay, so here we go. So here's the Scarlett. Where is 0? What do you mean 0? You mean right in the middle? Do you mean turn it off and then put the instrument level on? I'm not sure what he means by 0 here, but let's see. If it's a number bigger than 12.2, you'll need to boost the difference. If the number is smaller, then you'll need to subtract by the difference. I don't know what you mean. Our plugins are made with the following interface gain. Okay, so this is interesting. Analog domain sine waveform 1 volt peak to peak, maybe? 0.707 volts RMS equals minus 13 dBFS in the digital domain. What are you saying here? So that's their 0 is minus 13 decibels full scale. If you want to calibrate your interface in order to mimic the input gain our engineers use when creating and testing the plugins, I would advise you to feed a sine waveform to the interface and set the interface gain to such a level that the DAW peak meter shows minus 13 dBFS. So that's the gain coming in, but what does that have to do with your guitar's level? Let's say you got a louder or quieter guitar. So Scarlett is saying you're aiming for a minus 13 dBFS. Why would these be different though? Check these examples of feeding a sine waveform 1 volt. What is VP? Is it saying volt peak to peak? So UAD, if you feed that 1 volt in, you get minus 13 decibels full scale. Where's the RME? Because RME is minus. You can set them different. I have no idea. So,
right. So we know from Neural DSP, because they've got involved in this conversation, that
that's really nice that they tell you where their stuff is calibrated, because most of them don't. And I remember having to ask this before, like, where's the 0? In order to get like compressor plugins to behave the way you would think, but honestly, that's why you have trim controls everywhere, and I'm sure it helps to get this close, but you're trying to make it behave as if your guitar was plugged right into the amp. So to make the interface gain correct, that you'd be feeding the right level into it. So you're doing unity gain, but not exactly, because they have a certain target. These guys are saying minus 13 dBFS is their target. All right.
They actually, something like minus 13 is the level that they shoot stuff into.
I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm crazy cold. I had to take some cold medicine, so sorry about that.
That's like the baseline level that they look for. And in terms of accuracy, that's something like what we'd want to match our audio interface to. Generally, audio interfaces have way more gain by default than this, so what we need to do is set them to a high Z input, and then you can look at the specs of your audio interface, turn your gain all the way down to 0, because it's going to be more than enough as it is, and then you're aiming for like 12 to 13, and if your number is lower than 12 or 13, you're going to need to reduce the gain on.
But that's the sine wave. That's the sine wave, not your guitar. Your guitar is its own level. They're talking about, in order to zero this out, get your sine wave at that
input of your plugin to get close to that 12, 13. And if the number in your tech specs is higher than that, you're going to need to add a bit of gain. So I think that's it in a nutshell. Something to experiment with. I think my Steinberg RT4, that number comes up as plus 8.5. So for me, between 4 and 5 dB is like the necessary reduction I need to make to bring it into that accuracy sweet spot. I think if you've got a universal audio or a Focusrite, just dropping your gain down to 0 should pretty much do the job. There's more on this, but that's kind of the short version.
This is something that I've been chatting to my good buddy David Beebe about, and he's got a video actually coming up on this. And the kind of reason that we were thinking about this was that
speed this up.
The Morgan AC20. Well, I'll let him do most of the talking. But sometimes when we're using Neural DSP plugins, we kind of felt like there was way too much gain for certain things, and you might go and think,
so
right,
you know, like I use Helix Native, you'll see the same thing, like. But it kind of created the situation where people were taking really weak pickups and cranking them into their plugins and really being happy about the gain they're able to get, which makes sense.
It's an amp that you're familiar with, and you're like, well, why, when I play a Strat into it, can I not get some actual clean tones? David actually happened across a video by Edward Solosky, who clearly knows what's up, and here is what the problem has been. Like, there's no real baseline that these companies say, here is where you should set your interface. Or they give...
So that's why we always ask, where is your 0? What would be the equivalent of plugging your amp straight into the thing?
If you actually
plugging your guitar straight into the amp.
Pretty poor advice, because one of the key things that has been floated around as best practice is to set your interface gain as high as possible, as high as you can get it without clipping. Now, I think that advice comes from kind of signal to noise ratio stuff,
which is still fine. Like, honestly, it doesn't matter what you have your interface set at. What matters is what level's getting into the plugin. Let me pull up, for instance. So, okay, I'm gonna turn down the master volume here, so it's not gonna bother anybody. But so here's Reaper. Let's just pretend that I have a sine wave generator coming in. I'm actually going to put I'm just going to put a test tone, so MDA test tone 1K sine wave, and I'm going to put it in at well, let's just put it in loud. So get the 1K. Okay, so if I were to turn this up, you hear that annoying sound, right? What I'm gonna do, let's pretend that this sine wave test tone that I'm making is actually a sine wave that I have plugged into an audio interface. Now, so here's the sine wave test tone, and here's gonna be like the guitar amp plugins, So like, let's say, oops, got that wrong. back on. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this sine wave plugin into the guitar amp plugin. So this is how you'd be running it, right? And let's just say, now I don't own any neural DSP plugins, and I really don't plan on it for my own reasons. Actually, there's probably the same reasons a lot of you guys don't either. But so now if I have like Helix native, for instance, so here's one of my my presets here. That input right there is probably way too loud. And if you were to plug your guitar in this way, it would end up way more gain than you would expect. But turning down your interface isn't necessarily the way to get that right. And you may not be able to turn it down enough, honestly. There was a time with a lot of these Focusrite interfaces, for instance, and not just them, but I'm just saying, from Focusrite themselves, you could have, let me show this again. You could turn the instrument input on, and you turn the gain all the way down, and the hot pickup will still clip. I think if I plug in, even on my more professional Focusrite mic preamps, I got these 8-channel mic preamps, the Octoprix Mark II or Scarlett Octoprix. I got a couple different ones here. Do I have this? Yeah, what's the thing called? The Claret Octoprix. It's already going to be at 0 no matter what. It's going to be too high. So this might be where it is. But so you can't just turn it down on the interface. So I would probably use something like well, actually there's another way to do this, make a lot more sense, but let's just say, so here's a volume plugin. Let me put this here. So now when we look at Helix Native again, see that? So they're saying, like, at least for neural DSP, you want it quieter. You want it to come out to like -13. And you could test that right here. So this is -12, -13. Is that right? Okay. So yeah, we're at -13 here. Now you could honestly just take the knob right here. Hold on real quick. Let me check something. Hey. What do you? Oh, a little bit better, but
You sound better. Like
yeah. We're kind of right in the middle of something right now. But, all right. Cool. Sorry, send a visitor. So what you could do, like if I didn't have this volume control here, with this test tone coming in, just take this volume knob right here. I don't know why they're saying to use your interface, because the interface is not going to get you there. Turn that down until you see -13 or whatever you're supposed to see. And there you go. All right. One of the problems with trying to do it by your interface is you're not really maximizing your signal to noise ratio anyway. But again, I don't think you can. I think it's going to be too loud anyways. So anyways, I know I said anyways 4,000 times in a row. Sorry, here we go.
But actually doesn't really apply to guitar. So here's the point, right? When we plug into...
Okay, so let me play this again.
As high as possible, as high as you can get it without clipping. Now, I think that advice comes from kind of signal to noise ratio stuff, but actually doesn't really apply to guitar. So here's the point.
I don't know why he thinks it doesn't really apply to guitar. Look, if you got all this cranking, guitars are noisy as it is. And having a poor signal to noise ratio is only going to hurt you. I think you're better off having that higher level going in. Turn it down in digital, you're going to, like, let's say here's the noise floor. When you get it down to the right level, there you go. If you have the noise floor here and you turn it down, your noise is still pretty high. So this is bad advice. All right. Get your signal to noise ratio as high as you can, and then deal with it.
Right. When we plug into a normal amplifier or other modular, it doesn't really care what the output of the guitar is, right? As in, it doesn't change particularly. The input of a guitar amp, whether it's high or low or whatever, stays the same, and necessarily when you plug in different guitars, it responds differently to them. So therefore, with plugins, if we were to keep that the same, we'd want the interface to always be pretty much at the same level in order for our plugins to respond.
Right. And again, I wouldn't use the interface to do this. I would do this in your software. And that's why a lot of them have knobs on the way in. Like, again, here's Helix Native. That knob, that's your input level. I'm pretty sure I would think they all have this kind of thing.
As we'd expect. So you wouldn't set your Strat to be exactly the same output as a high output guitar like this and then go, right, well then this Neural DSP version of a Mesa Boogie 2C Plus is going to sound right. Do you get what I mean? So Edward Solosky, I think, contacted Neural DSP and got this response from them. So basically what we should be doing is setting our gain pots on our interfaces to 0. That's basically
0?
Essentially what we should be doing, and set it to the high Z inputs. But beyond that, possibly depending on your interface, you may also need to go into the plugin and on your input gain, drop that as well. The number that we're apparently looking for is like 12.2 to 13 dB is where we should be aiming for. And on your specs of your audio interface, you'll be able to find what it is that is actually capable of producing or what level it's at. And then you subtract or add gain based on that. So set your thing to 0. I've got a Steinberg UR RT4, which is apparently 4 dB.
But when he's saying 0, I think they mean minimum. I don't think they mean 0. I mean 0 means 0 gain, like you're adding no gain, which actually would be unity. I think they mean minimum. All right. Well, it's cool that they actually printed this out. Give me a second. Now there's a thread here at Gear Forum. See, okay. So what level are they talking about for the Helix Native? I mean, I know that my Helix Native sounds different when I plug my guitar in through a DI than it does on my actual Helix hardware. But again, because I probably have it way hell too loud, but I don't mind usually. So that's the difference. But I probably am sending too much gain to make it sound exactly like the unit. So I should figure this out. That'd be actually cool. I'm not seeing what it should be for the Helix. It might actually be in the beginning of this thread. This thread's 26 pages now. Long now. Oh yeah. So James Freeman. Okay, if you guys don't know who that is, he's the guy who raised a big stink about the 800 in the Helix, and now we have one. But he says, my method of calibrating your audio interface in Helix Native to match Helix hardware. The result is more accurate gain from Helix Native equal to hardware. Last thing you want is to unknowingly set your vintage Telecaster to be as hot as shredding axe with 18-volt EMGs. Okay, so generate a 1 kilohertz sine wave test tone in your DAW. It shows you how to do it with the hardware itself. Interesting. What does Helix want? Well, he's using the noise gate to find the exact right level. I think there should be a sine wave level that you could get to. Where's he setting this thing? Let's see. Yeah, see, so this Helix might be a lot different than yeah, sorry. Man, I'm sorry, this cold medicine's killing me. Hey, hello. Slice move OLL. I know I'm saying this the wrong way, but Let me just keep going.
Is the maximum line level, and so I need to get to 12. I should be kind of taking 6 dB off at the other end, right? So kind of interesting. It completely changes the response of the plugins, and I think this is going to be my new baseline. At least setting the input on my interface.
Remember, the title of this thing is "We've all been using guitar plugins wrong." You know, actually nothing wrong with feeding too much gain into it anyway. Maybe you want more gain than the amp could actually do. But, you know, if you want it to be accurate to the amp model, then make sure that you're feeding at the same level as they expect to see.
It's to 0. If you've got Focusrite or Universal Audio, just doing that should be enough. Depending on other interfaces, you may need to take a little bit more signal off. But basically, I've been overdriving my plugins for the whole time that I've been using plugins, it turns out.
We do that on purpose. I mean, look, a lot of us like doing that. So
let me know if you've been doing this too. This might be why things have always sounded like there's too much gain on the Neural DSP stuff, and even why your Helix native presets don't sound the same as your HX Stomp or Helix presets. Yeah, it's all starting to make a bit more sense now. So thanks to David BB for the chat. Thanks to Edward Solosky for the chat as well. You probably are overdriving your plugins at the input. It's basically the equivalent of sticking like a Katana boost up front. So therefore you're getting way more gain through these plugins than you would if you were plugging into the hardware equivalents. I'm plugged into my interface here. I'll just show you kind of the... So that's how I've got things set up now. How I was told, and how we get told, by, you know, the manufacturers in general, in terms of their front-facing stuff, tell you to set the gain on...
All right, I got to stop making fun of this guy because he is a fellow Reaper user, so I guess I shouldn't be. He's still a beardo.
Your interface as high as you can before it starts clipping, which for me is around here, which is obviously way louder. I think what actually needs to be done for most people with most interfaces is you just set your gain to 0.
It's still too loud.
And the reason that this matters, I think, is because if you think about something that's sort of on the edge of breakup or supposed to be clean, if I set it so my interface is set up to be just before clipping, I'm actually driving the input of the plugin way harder. The other thing I've checked out, it actually says that based on your specs, you should probably even be reducing this input. So essentially you are aiming for, with Neural DSP, a number of 12.2. So if your interface is less than that, then you need to take off input. And if it was more than that...
It's not telling you the level that's coming in. I don't know if... I think Helix Native doesn't either. I think what Helix tells you is you can see it against the meter, but this level that it reads up at the top is actually where you've got this set to. So it'd be nice, like if you were using oh man, yeah, I just ordered the Fishman Strat battery. I'm gonna put it on one of my guitars. So let's see. So if you're looking at this volume plugin in Reaper anyway, it actually, I don't know if you can see this right here, but this is telling you the actual value of the tone coming in, not the value of the knob itself. So, oh hey Bennett, yeah, I'm super thrilled with that Fishman stuff. So I went and ordered the I got it coming on the way here. I got the Fishman battery Strat right here. So I ordered this guy right here. It's actually the same size as my spring cavity cover on my Agile. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around the wrong way, and I should be able to use this hole right here to adjust my Sailor Surecloth thing. But yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with those Fishman pickups. I was surprised by how many different sounds you could get out of the same pickup. Okay, get back to this guy.
You need to add it on. So if it was like 14, you'd add on 2 or whatever. So taking it down to around -6, it's apparently sort of around my sweet spot for where it'd be the most accurate to stuff. So drop this to 6 because of my interface. If I up on the interface again, here that's just overdriving it basically. And yeah, as I say, where it probably is going to matter most would be on things that are supposed to be that edge of breakup. I did want to show you this on Pliny, but for some reason it's not loading properly. But let's jump out of here.
Should I even say anything? I mean, again, this is why we're not using that stuff.
So you see there, I've dropped the input, -6. I don't know if that'd be the same thing in Helix. I'll have a look. So here we've got, as you see here, this is set to 0. And this...
See, again, Helix might have a totally different reference level than the neural DSP stuff, and that's the thing. We got to know the reference level. When Tonex came out, you know, a lot of us were baffled because no matter how you set this thing, the gain seemed to keep coming up wrong, and I don't think we ever got a good answer on what the actual reference level is supposed to be.
Yeah, it doesn't sound particularly clear. Let's try dropping this -6-ish. I think that's probably actually closer to where I would have had things. Let's try this 80s rhythm stomp. If I bring this input back up to, you know, where it would be stock 0, just too much, so -6. So I think if I've been making this mistake, probably a bunch of you guys have.
I don't know that it's a mistake. I don't know that you call that a mistake. It's just because the reference levels aren't set anywhere. We don't know what reference levels to feed it. But you know, that's cool. If they tell you what the reference level is, then we can just. I'm gonna ask.
I think it's well-meaning because it's based on the advice that we've given, which is literally just set it up so you're gain staging it like a normal microphone or whatever. But with guitar plugins and stuff, what we're actually trying to attempt is to get things, I think, to where the interface and the plugin are more or less acting like they would in the real world, which does mean that you wouldn't change it per guitar, right? You don't go up to your amplifier and say, now I'm plugging in a Les Paul, so I need to set it as high as clipping. Basically, you would do that within the amp block itself rather than at the front end with the interface and stuff like that, if you get what I mean. So yeah, I've been going into all of my plugins with too much gain, if anything, because yeah, as you can hear, that's a huge boost, which I'm basically giving it at the front end with my interface. So yeah, check that out, see if you agree with that. And if you get any better results, I think you might find a bit more clarity if that's one of the things that you were looking for, and things maybe are going to be less prone to break up. Let's find one of my go-to presets somewhere around here. So here, for instance, is a preset that the Snapshot 3 is like an edge of breakup, where I would have had it in particular, right now I'm using a Schecter Aaron Marshall, which has a load more gain coming from the pickups than a Strat that I might play. So, you know, I need, if the things are going to be accurate, it would react differently to this guitar. I wouldn't set the gain going into the front end differently per guitar. So with a Strat, for example,
Oh, it's getting so loud already.
you know, necessarily we should be hitting our interface with less volume than that, and we wouldn't compensate on the interface by chucking up that gain, not unless we're wanting to change things from the baseline. So I think this is my new kind of baseline here, actually starting off with the gain knob on the interface off. I'm probably even dropping the signal down to about minus 60 dB based on the response from Neural DSP. I'm going to assume they might even make their plugins in line with other competitors. I'll try and get a response on that from someone else, maybe at line 6, but we'll see. And this might be one of the reasons that people find that, oh, my Helix actually responds way differently to Helix native. Well, it could be because you've got the gain staging set up in the way that you've been advised, but it's totally at odds with the real world. Yeah, give that a try. Thanks to Edward Solosky and Beeps for that.
Yeah,
as a
I'd be
suggestion.
interested to know if somebody's giving you the numbers.
Might
for
be
the...
a really good thing to try
Yeah,
on your
let's see.
interfaces if you're finding, oh, I don't necessarily feel like I'm getting many clean tones out of Neural DSP plugins or Helix native. Everything seems to be a bit dirty. Why not try dropping your volume here? So turn your gain down on your interface and.
It's from Nate Potter 6911. You can reduce the signal level after you've recorded it if you're printing the clean guitar signal. The plugin won't care as long as you haven't drastically altered the clean signal much. Same goes the other way, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about all. I'd love to know what the actual Helix number is. Anyways, well, hopefully we sort of learned something. But I'm gonna get out of here. I'm surprised how late in the day it already is, man. We're